One of the visitors, the Shia, you weren't all here yesterday, so I'll give a second introduction to this Shia, which is the guide of one of the greatest geniuses that have ever existed amongst Am Yisrael, Luzzatto. Amongst his many works, he also produced a short guide to understanding the method of the oral tradition. In other words, this goes back to the basis of the creation of the human being, that it's clear the main difference between the animal world and the human world is the power of thought. To be able to think and to be able to differentiate in thought between truth and falsehood, which was the power of thought given to Adam HaRishon. Truth and falsehood in every area of life, including the area of moral thinking, which is also a question of truth and falsehood, which is not given to any other being. And it's this power to distinguish the power of truth and falsehood, virtue and vice, which is described at the beginning of the Tanakh of the Bible as being a divine power given over to the human being. Because God is the God of truth, who can distinguish between truth and false objectively. And the human beings created in the image of God, that we're also able to distinguish between truth and falsehood. All human beings have that potential, but frequently that potential is suppressed by the animalistic instinct which exists in man, and they can exist in man in a more vicious, destructive form that exists anywhere in the animal world. And if we were ever witnesses to this, mankind was ever witnesses to this, that human beings can be far more destructive and evil than the worst instincts in the animal world, we see it happening today, unfortunately. So, but how do you find the truth? The human being has to work hard to find the truth and to find what is morally virtuous and what is immorally vicious. We have to work on it. Why? Because we also have an animal nature. And if I analyze the verse where it says in the second chapter of Chumash, you find on page 2 in the Jerusalem Bible, you should look at it. There it says in chapter 2, verse 8, that God created man, says, and he breathed into him Nishmat Chayim, Vahiva Adam, the Nefesh Chaya, and this became a life power of the soul. Now this phrase is also used about the animals. The animals also have a life power. The life power of the animal is to fulfill its function, to eat, to move around, to produce and reproduce. That exists in the animal world. That's the nefesh chaya of the beast world. And whatever they do, whether it's something which seems constructive or destructive, it's part of their function. They are robots, to a certain extent. But they're not robots produced by human skill, like a machine from the mineral world. but they're creatures of Hashem given a function of the animal soul. The human being also possesses this. And the human being, this is the depth of the comment of Rashi on that verse, the Nefesh Chayav, the human being, is the power of Deya and Dibur. Of Deya means a deep understanding and speech. The deep understanding is the power of thought. Deya is like Da'at Tovara, Da'at bin Emet Vasheker. That the animal world does not possess. Even though can functionally, some of them produce words like parrots, and some of them can do actions which are a bit similar to human actions like monkeys, but that's part of their function. And some of them can be very domesticated and tame, like the pigeons, like some tame animals, pets. And some of them can be very vicious. That's also part of their nature. But the human being, who's also got a nefesh chaya, but the nefesh chaya, the human being, has contained within it the nishmat chayim, the breath of life given by Hashem Himself, which is the power of discernment. Therefore we find that's one of the most important instincts, important human being, is the instinct of being able to think, which means you want to find the truth. You want to find the truth about the world, about all the mysteries. We even want to find the truth about what's going on in the universe. But more important than what's going on in the universe is what's going on in human society. They will also have to find the truth. What's going on with the human individual, they will also have to find the truth. How would you do it? So this power was given to the human race, to everybody. But since mankind as a whole rejected this path, and instead the animalistic soul took hold to become the master over the divine soul of man, so man became more corrupt. More corrupt in the animal world than the deluge. There was only the survival of the fittest. Noah was the fittest in his family. So they survived, the others disappeared. And then from Noah till Avraham Avinu, they again kept on creating more and more corruption and idolatry, which is all part of the projection of the animalistic soul. Until Avraham Avinu, he changed things. He recognized the true God. He recognized the search for truth, and he searched for the truth of the universe and came to a knowledge of God, not a belief, just a real knowledge of God and closest to Him. And at the same time, he became close to the path of God, which is given to man, to follow tzedakah u'mishpat, which is the highest level in all areas of life, to do everything in the spirit of charity and the spirit of justice. And this, Hashem Elokim, the name of God came upon Avraham Avinu, and then Hashem said, from now on, He said, I'm going to choose you like you've chosen me. You chose me to follow me, and therefore I'm going to come closer to you. And from you there's going to be a blessing coming to the whole world. And this is the blessing given to Avraham, and then afterwards Yitzchak and Yaakov, and afterwards the people of Israel. And the first Rashi, which we read in the first verse of the Chumash, is very significant, because it's as though God was saying, if you go a little more deeply, what happened to Adam and Eve has happened to mankind, and has happened also to the people of Israel. So there's a certain spot on this globe which is reminiscent of the Garden of Eden, of the paradise, that's the land of Israel, and have chosen also Avraham and his descendants to build their society which can lead back to the lifestyle of Gan Eden. So one of the first conditions, in the first chapter, the 12th chapter of Shemot, which gives the the renewal of the search for real truth given to the people of Israel, which are combined with a pattern of life to create a discipline which will make it possible for human beings to release themselves from the enslavement to the animalistic instincts, and therefore, both in thought as well as in action, there's a lifestyle given which will produce the search for the truth. And therefore, in that chapter, which deals with the celebration of the first Pesach, Pesach is the birth of the people of Israel, and the renewal of that service of Hashem year by year, to renew it, to make a rebirth year by year of the people of Israel. It's quite remarkable that it gives the different laws concerning, it's interesting, that chapter, concerning being released from Egyptian enslavement and being released from enslavement to the animalistic soul. And so it gives mitzvot. It gives there the mitzvot of the firstborn concept. The responsibility of the firstborn is to be the first one to declare a human being as a father and a mother. On the national scale, it means you are the firstborn, the people of Israel. You must know you've got responsibility to the family of nations. You're the firstborn, and therefore this concept has to accompany you constantly. You are the one who's got to be the representative of the fatherhood of God, the Creator, which means human beings really His children. And the family of God is the family of goodness, of virtue. So what is put amongst these laws? Tefillin is put there, practical mitzvot that should discipline the power of the mind over the power of the body. Then it says, you're going to have questioners. Because the whole idea of the Torah is to arouse people not to take their existence for granted. Otherwise, if they just take the existence for granted and say, what difference does it make what I do whatever I feel like doing, well, you go astray. You've got to find the truth. What is the truth about the world? What is the truth about God? What is the truth about what the human being has been brought into this world? Why is he brought into this world? Therefore, to ask them questions. The beginning of the oral tradition comes with questions. Because you're searching for truth, you search, what is the truth? What is the right path? So it says, you are given this heritage, you have it already from your forefather, from Yitzchak and Yaakov. You've got to make sure that it's continuous until the people of Israel will change the whole world, especially in the land of Israel. So therefore you have the beginnings of the oral tradition already in that chapter. And then, if you go further, the whole Chumash, which describes the structure of the Torah state in the land of Israel, it says that the people who have to lead the land in the right direction are the greatest sages, those who've really worked hard to find out the truth. It's very interesting that Greek civilization, already prophesied by Noah, says, Yaft Elokim liyefes. They can get a concept of the mind of the universe, the Creator. And we also know the highest development of Greek thought took place amongst some of the philosophers. So Plato, he describes the ideal state was led by philosophers. They used to have this idea, Yesh chokhmah bagoyim, there's potential to find out the truth amongst those even who did not receive the whole Torah, not part of Am Yisrael at all. But the search for truth is inherent in the human beings. The human beings who work hard upon themselves, they'll also search for God, like the Greeks did, and like many civilizations have done, even they had no real knowledge of Torah. But Torah Bagoyim go and find, because Torah means the practical knowledge of how to change behavior. What is the real difference between virtue and vice? It could only come from the Creator of life. And that was given over to Israel. And to some extent, the nations of the world have been influenced, but not sufficiently. So I'll just say this as an introduction. Also, when we come now to the Moshe Chaim Luzzatto and his description of what he calls the Derech HaKodesh, the way of holiness, it really is, which is divided into 3 sections: Derech Tevunot, Sefer Geon, Sefer Amlitza, the path of deeper understanding, reasoning, the book of logic, and the book of words. This is all, as it says in the beautiful translation, partial commentary of Rabbi Saxon, who's worked hard on this, that this gives us a guide to learning Gemara. If you learn Gemara deeply, you're on the path of holiness. Derech HaKodesh. Because every person is given a certain amount of initial intellectual talent, different types of intelligence. Some are given what's called emotional intelligence, others are given more logical intelligence, and each person is given his portion. Ten chalkeinu b'toratecha. He's given a different portion which he's born with a potential to expand. If he uses his power of will to the maximum, he can increase his rather dull brain to become a genius. It has happened. A person shouldn't feel himself limited more than necessary. He's got to feel it. He has to feel himself limited. He shouldn't go overboard. Also not in mental exertion. Because it's got to recognize that there's a rhythm of rest which brings renewal of energies. So that's necessary. And if he works about everything in the directives given by the sages, then he'll be able to grow constantly. So yesterday we began with the first page. Since you don't all have it, I'll give all of you the second page. I'll just conclude the first page where we left off. Do the last paragraph on page 14. It's available, or you can share with others. The reason why I want you to look inside, you can learn a lot of Hebrew this way, because the link between the Hebrew of the time of the Mishnah and modern Hebrew, the major link in Jewish history has been made by Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, who was a master of language. Of course, he based a lot also on the language of the Rambam. So it says here in the third paragraph, perhaps you can share it. No pages lying around. They're probably lying around. So, it says, Omnam. However, it comes to the root Ome, accepting what we've said. We accept, we affirm what has been said. So Omnam, nevertheless, lo kol habechinot mitgalot b'shaveh. The way we understand things around us are not the same. He brings the example of a table. What knowledge do we have of a table? We have the knowledge that comes through the sense of the eyes, and that's also the sense of feeling. You can feel the table is solid, and we look at the table. But the senses, the five senses of the person, do not make the same impression on every person. There are certain aspects revealed and understood immediately through the senses themselves. There's some which are more hidden. You've got to think more deeply, make a big effort, effort, to be able to understand them. As I explained yesterday, even with the table, to understand what the table is really, the senses show you one perspective, but to get the full perspective, you've got to look at it from all angles. Then you see the table is not just the surface that you see, but it's got legs and so on. You see it all around. In order to understand what it's used for, certainly the use of a table is different according to the person who observes the table and also any knowledge that he had. And amongst all existences and objects is apparent in one object but hidden in another one. So there are certain aspects of an object which are revealed with one type of object, but they're hidden in another aspect. Everyone knows the use of the table is to place on the table lasum alav ochlim ukelim, food or utensils. Tashmish halechem kumuken. The use of bread is also lachilat adam. That everyone understands. Bread is there for the food of man. Ach tashmish asabim. But when it comes to making use of different herbs, me'isvei haaretz, the herbs of the earth, it's not all the same. Lo yivada, and we come to the second page, page 16, which I think about. Yeah. Enough for everybody, please. Everyone take a page. Lo yivada, can only become known, elo acha ishtadlut gedolah, only after great effort is put into it. It means to know which herbs you can eat, and which are poisonous, and which can be used for certain illnesses. That needs a whole study. Even if it can be understood, nimtza, some we don't even know, or the average person doesn't know. Nimtza she'en kol ha-nimtzaim megulei kol ha-bechinot sheba-hashkif alehen tusag amidatam. From here you can see, you can't know every aspect of all the things that exist if you look at them. It doesn't mean by looking superficially you can know the truth about these herbs. So, it says, superficial, here on his note he said, Rab opens his introduction with the ultimate goal of Torah study, which is the search for truth. If you look at the notes at the bottom. The ensuing discussion about various aspects of things and about abstract concepts would seem more suited to the book of logic. But the Ramal is placed at the beginning of the ways of reason to show us that search for truth encompasses conceptual thinking or lomdos, which is the subject of the book of logic, as well as mastery of the Talmudic text, which is the aim of the ways of reason. Do any of you understand what this comment means? What lies behind this comment? What does the statement here about herbs have to do with the two ways of learning the Gemara? It says one way is called lomdas. As soon as you've heard the word lomdas, lomdas means when people they discuss things in the Gemara to understand what's the principle that lies behind the Gemara, behind the argument. Sometimes there's two different opinions, you've got to understand what are they really arguing about. And he says, what is this aspect of the Talmudical text? Gemara says you've got to study the Talmudical text first to know it well. Then afterwards you can apply lomdas. In fact, in this work, at least the commentary of Rabbi Sekton, he constantly speaks about what we call today Girsa and Svara. Girsa means the reading of the Gemara. You read the Gemara, you've got to know exactly what the text is. There's sometimes doubts whether the text is like this or like that. Then you've got to know the text. You learn if it's an Ariel and Broch, you've got to know the text. Then afterwards you can start thinking, what's the logic behind it? Same applies even the Mishnah. The Mishnah says for the first Mishnah of Brochus, it's applied to what we're learning. Now, from which time do you read the Shema in the evening? From the time the Kohanim go to eat the Truma. So, we know the time the Kohanim eat the Truma, that's when the 3 stars are in heaven. When the sun sets, 3. So what's one? So of course we immediately ask the question: what's one to do with the other? We're dealing here with the Shema. So why doesn't the Mishnah say you read the Shema at night when there's 3 stars, when the sun is set? What's all this? Why bring the Kohanim? So then there's svaros, the different logical reasons, or at least you can call it educational reasons, pedagogical reasons, why the Mishnah brings in the laws of the Kohanim, which is a different area entirely, which is not really the main purpose of the Mishnayos of Brochos. So in learning, you have the reading, and then once you've read it, you know what it says, then you can start asking questions and try to understand the reasonability and the inner ideas which are reflected in the text of the Gemara, and then even after you have an argument of 3 different opinions, you've got to find out what is the basis of the different opinions. So we say it's b'shach b'cho. B'shach b'cho you can translate in 2 different ways. It means when you're about to go to sleep. So the average is, you could say, people go to sleep from sunset until midnight. So it's time to go to sleep. Or it doesn't mean the time when people are actually sleeping. Because most people actually sleep till the morning. So therefore it's all night. So you go into the swara behind the differences of opinion. So even in every aspect of learning Mishnah or learning Gemara, You have to concentrate upon the words and then upon the reasoning behind it. Even learning Chumash. You can learn Chumash just to read it and know to translate it, but to understand it deeply, you've got to use Lomdas. So this is here compared to a person who sees, who goes in the forest. In the forest you find many different herbs and plants, and he looks at them and so on. You can see them, but does he really know which plants are edible and which plants help a different disease? Today we know there's a huge industry of the different effects of so many different herbs and herb extracts for every disease and every situation of the body of the human being imaginable. And some is good for animal fodder, and some is not good for human fodder, and some is poisonous, and some is it's got healing powers. So a person just looks, he will know very little. He can even make a picture of each one, and maybe even find certain names in encyclopedias, what they are. But to understand more deeply, you have to take out more than just an encyclopedia to tell what name it is with a picture, but you have to take out a book on the qualities of differing herbs and study it thoroughly. So what's the comparison?
I would think that you can't do a Gemara unless you understand the Mishnah. That comes first. You have to understand what's being said before you can get into logic and start. But you can question the Gemara, what do they mean by this, and then perhaps the Gemara will get into it. But I was told many, many years ago that first learn the Mishnah, understand it exactly, and then before you're able to tackle the Gemara.
Any other comments or questions? So anyway, the way I think is after all, this book is called Derech HaKodesh, the path of holiness. Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, he had deep psychological, philosophical insights into the human mind. So he says you can look at the human mind from its passive aspect and from its creative aspect. And that passive creative aspect comes into play in wanting to understand anything. You want to understand botany. So there's aspects of botany where you just have to be passive and absorb the knowledge of the different herbs, but really to know how they should be used and so on, to have discernment, that's already making use of something more creative. There's the creative intelligence and the passive intelligence. And that comes into play into all areas of life, and also in understanding Gemara. One of the things about the Gemara, if a person studies more widely, there's hardly any aspect of human knowledge which is not referred to in the Gemara. And although it's Torah, but you'll find, especially if someone's learned Daf Yomi, you'll find we deal with every situation that can arise. And of course, even beyond Gemara, it goes on in the Shutim and everything afterwards. There are many things which became knowledge in later periods, which are not mentioned directly in the Gemara. But we have to use the same methods of intellectual development and growth and stretching the mind used in the Gemara. You've got to use them in all areas of life, because the Gemara connects them all with the wisdom given by the Creator Himself, which is the wisdom given in the Tanakh. And from the Tanakh, which is given by the Creator at various levels, the divine revelation is really the basis, Torah Shebechtav, for using the Midor Torah Nidreshet Bahem, from developing further. Now, this is of importance in what I think will probably develop, or start in Korea, is likely to develop in the whole world. And it's the strongest power to stop the destructive animalistic instincts which are taking over mankind. That is, for example, even on the most terrible question that faces mankind today, to be or not to be, is the human race going to continue or not? Because the Holocaust is a warning for which was Holocaust produced by genocide, but there are already books, I've studied some of them, about something worse than genocide. Genocide means to remove what people imagine is a race, their own race, from the world. And what's worse, omnicide, which means to remove mankind from the world. And certainly the potential is there. The Holocaust only ended because mankind used the tool for omnicide, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. So it shows the terrible situation we're faced with today, the enormous threat of maniacs. Like, you know, it was a maniac, okay, but the maniacs take over. It doesn't just maniacs take over if we allow them to. They've got maniacs. See, it's percolating through to the level of child education. They're going to make destructive instincts for babies. They're training them, or baby, or to kill, give them toys to kill. It's the most terrible sign of the transformation of the human race and enormous danger for mankind. And there are many books that have been written how perhaps one can stop it. And the major books that were written, they say, the way to stop it is through Torah. Like there's a great philosopher. He got the Nobel Prize, called Jaspers, for his book The Future of Mankind. He wrote it already years ago. There he says he only sees future. If you analyze it more deeply, future of mankind can only come about through applying the ethics of the Torah to the whole world. It's the only way. But how can it come about? So people have to get used to it. Our Torah, the fact that in Korea, they introduced there, unfortunately, these people in Korea are not yet on the level to understand the significance of Talmudic learning for the development of morality. But they've caught on that it's the key to the development of the human mind from scientific analysis. And others have done it as well. This person wrote a whole book on how to understand the Nobel Prize winners. He says it's Talmudical exercise. So that this is reflected here. Human thought is analyzed here clearly. You've got to use the mind in the way that anybody will use it. Any human being wants to know about botany. He knows he's got to learn what the herbs are and then learn what could be the use of the herbs. That's the moshel he brings. It's the same method used in the Gemara. More you can work on the text and then try to understand it. To some extent, it's also the relationship between the words of the Torah and the words of Torah nidreshet bahem. And the Torah gives us the basis. You've got to know it, and then you have to use it to develop it. So then he says here, we'll just do the next paragraph.
Can I ask a question?
Yes. Okay,
it's about reason and logic. The Torah says that you shouldn't mevashel gadi ba'im shelo, in his mother's milk. But the main important, if you lose your logic, it says here that you shouldn't mevashel, that's cook. So that means you can take a piece of meat and soak it in milk all day, but as long as you don't heat it up and start cooking it in the milk, then it's okay. The point here is not to mix milk and meat, if you ask me with logic. The point is here, lo mevashel, don't cook it in the milk. That seems to me the main point. It doesn't say you shouldn't mix it, it says you shouldn't mevashel. You can put milk in meat today, soak meat in milk all day long, there's nothing wrong with it. Only it says lo mevashel, don't cook it. That seems to be the logical point here, not the this point.
Well, can any of you answer this question?
Not supposed to mix it, even if you don't need it.
It doesn't. I'm talking about the
You're
Torah.
mixing it. You're saying you're mixing meat and milk. You're not supposed to do it.
No, but that's rabbinic. I was talking about the Torah. The Torah doesn't say that. The rabbi is saying, "Oh, you shouldn't mix milk and meat." But the main point here, I'm talking about the main point. The main point is that you shouldn't cook it. That is the main point. You can leave it in milk all day, but if you light underneath and the milk starts to boil and cook the meat, that's what's forbidden. If you ask me in logic, it's logic.
I have a question. Is this meat that you're putting inside the milk raw already, or is it already cooked?
Raw, say small. Well, say cooked.
So
it doesn't
if it's
matter.
raw, you can't eat it raw. Once you cook it, there's already milk inside the meat. So
Where does it say you can't eat meat raw?
No, but basically the rabbis are saying, okay, it says that you're not supposed to cook the milk inside the meat, but if you mix it, there's always going to be a change.
If you knew the Talmud, the Kohanim, when Shabbat, when Yom Kippur fell on the Shabbat, they used to eat raw.
So look, there's a few aspects.
But
first of all, we should know that it says in the Torah itself that the ones appointed to give interpretation are the Chachamim. And there are many things in the Torah which indicate that the written Torah was given over to Moshe and Aaron and the Sukenim, the elders, and it was combined with the oral tradition given by Hashem also to Moshe, to everybody. So when it says in the Torah 3 times, the oral tradition was that we won't now go into right emphasize cooking 3 times from the point of view of deeper concepts, but halachically speaking, it taught us that there were 3 prohibitions connected with meat and milk. First of all, that there was a prohibition to eat a mixture of meat and milk, a prohibition to cook the 2 together, and a prohibition not to have benefit from the 2 together. And what you said, there's also another principle which has to do with all laws of kashrus, that kavush kemavushal, something which is soaked for 24 hours, it's got the same law as being cooked. So these are oral traditions. And I might ask, okay, otherwise it's like saying the non-Jew came to Hillel and Shammai and said, I want to accept the written text, I don't want to accept the oral law. So Hillel taught him, without oral tradition, you wouldn't be able to read the text of the Chumash correctly. And we wouldn't know how to vocalize it with the oral tradition. And then in the end he accepted Torah Shebechtav and Torah Sheba'al-Peh. So the Sadducean concept, or the one that's followed today, let's say, by some reformers who say, I only want to accept what I think is the interpretation of the written text, it says in the Chumash, for example, Shechita. Many people, they say, well, kashrus I keep. But what's kashrus based on? It does not say anywhere in the Chumash how to slaughter the animal in a kosher manner. Does it say? It says it makes a distinction of Velo and Shachut. But how do you do Shechita? It doesn't say. Shechita we know through oral tradition. We keep the person takes to Sukkos, so at Robim expensive, takes a lemon. I said, what? It says Pri Eitz Hadar. It should be a fruit from, even today, Hadar includes all citrus fruits, all types. So who says a lemon is no good? How do you know? Why take? I can't get it wrong. I'll use a lemon. How do you write mezuzah and tefillin? It doesn't say in the Chumash. So therefore, the whole of Torah, practically speaking, is based on oral traditions. The same applies to the threefold prohibition, Lo tavashel gedi b'chalev imo. You could go further, you could say, it only says you mustn't boil a kid, gati, but I don't take goat meat, no. I take cow's meat, ox meat, doesn't say in the Chumash. Who says I can't mix it with milk? And then it says it's got to be the milk of its mother. If it's not the milk of its mother, so what's the prohibition? No. If the milk I'm taking is not from the mother of the goat, there's no prohibition. But this is similar to the age-old argument concerning an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, which is supposed to be made as one of the sources of anti-Semitic attacks on the Jewish people until today, because they misinterpret the oral tradition. But it says, an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. It says, whatever damage a person does to his neighbor's limb, he's got to pay for it. But it's eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. So how do you explain that? So the deep explanation is like, I'm not going now to get no time for it to go into the question of milk and meat, which is kept very well by many Jews. With some of them, unfortunately, there are other aspects of Torah Sheba'al Peh they don't keep. But even this one, I give them easier interpretation. If you go into deep, and the Rambam brings it also in his Mishnah Torah, that if a person does, he says, well, so I was careless, so I knocked out his eye, yeah? Or knocked out his tooth. So the Torah says, the written Torah, often goes in a deeper concept. You have to treat your fellow man like yourself. In other words, you should recognize that don't think, so I've injured someone, but it was a mistake. It was my mistake. So I'd have to pay so much. Got to pay five different types of payment because I knocked out his teeth or knocked out his. Why 5 different? Why so many payments? I've got to pay not only for the actual damage done to him. He's an old man already, so I knocked out his eye. But you've got to pay him for pain, for shame, for any doctor's fees. You've got to pay him five different types. He said, no, you've got to know, it's like if you lose your own eye, how would you feel? You've got to know you damage someone else. He is as valuable in front of Hashem as you are yourself. And therefore be careful. We wouldn't, for example, if not for this concept, eye for a tooth, a limb for a limb, today we're very careless about other people's limbs. When we drive a car, we don't care if we, sometimes, people, they drive and they cripple someone a bit, and then they take it lightly. They say, I didn't want to do it, I did it by mistake, therefore it's not criminal. The Torah says it's partly criminal. That's why it says eye for an eye. And not the way they're treated. Like, the truth is, the case of Merchant of Venice, as you know, such a Merchant of Venice did exist. In Italy there was such a case. In fact, my uncle made a whole research on it. He wrote a complete research on that subject. It did take place, but it wasn't a Jew. It was a non-Jew who demanded a pound of flesh. So it's twisted. Like today also, you've got plenty of blood libel. Everything's been twisted. The power of our enemies today, even now what about Abu Mazan does, he twists everything. Everything is done to go and condemn the Jewish people for the type of evils our enemies do.